On the show today, we have Amy Weinland Daughters, and here is why she is awesome. She's an award winning author, keynote speaker, and humorist. She's focused on helping people reconnect to each other through the power of handwritten letters. This is all supported by her fantastic 2022 book, Dear Dana, That Time I Went Crazy and Wrote All 580 of My Facebook Friends a Handwritten Letter. She's been featured on The Kelly Clarkson Show, Insider, ABC, and she's here today. Hello, Amy.
Hello, Russell. Thank you for having me.
Communication nerd. I always love having communication nerds on my show. It just makes me feel warm on the inside, being a communication nerd myself. Before we dig into the value of this type of communication, I have to ask you the same question I ask all of my guests to kick us off. Amy, what is your best or worst employee experience?
Well, even as a positive person, I'm going to go with my worst just because this kind of was a defining moment for me. I was in purchasing before I began to write, and I got myself up to, I was the purchasing manager for a wine company. It was a great job. And I had my direct supervisor. I wanted to make a move into marketing to where I was going to work with wineries and set up programs. It would have been a great lateral shift for me. And she basically went in and blocked it because she wanted me to stay where I was. And it was so disappointing because we had a great personal and professional relationship. But it made me realize, though, that as managers, we're one of the things I think we're called upon to do, which is difficult, is to develop people to where they can fly out on their own. And that's highly difficult because it messes up what we're trying to do. Overall, it's almost like children. It messes up when they leave after they've learned to do the dishwasher and the trash. It messes us up. But she made me realize, like, over and over again, and I tell people this story all the time because it kind of defined what I want to do with people, not just who work for me, but who I work with.
The selfishness of that as well. I mean, I wouldn't even call that a leader. That is someone who just doesn't want to hire and retrain and doesn't want to rock the boat of the status quo because it's easier for them. Meanwhile, your career is being stymied
Right.
because of selfishness. How did that impact your relationship going forward?
Well, I mean, it didn't destroy the relationship, but it definitely, because I'm into not burning bridges. That's kind of one of my mantras, and not because I'm a great person. She didn't burn it either. So credit to both parties, I guess. But I mean, it was never the same. And I didn't want to work for her anymore because then you see the writing on the wall. So you talk about things like retention and it ruined that. So short term, she got what she wanted. Long term, I moved on to another, not just another organization altogether. And we're still friends to this day. But I mean, it was a bad move. So
It still has an impact. I mean, I don't know how deeply she thought it through or just about the impact it would be. I mean, you can be cordial and you can be professional and keep moving on, but to not think it's not going to have some impact
right.
on your interest in the role or your passion or ambition to learn and move on, it doesn't stymie that. It just reinforces it. That's so weird. I never understand when managers do that. I won't call them leaders. I won't do it.
Yeah. It's personal. I think it was personal. I mean, like you said, she had the situation she wanted, but I don't know that she wanted me to move on. It also made me think that moving up, there wasn't going to be that upward mobility in that position because she wasn't going to be for me going and doing something better, which is what I wanted,
Of course, which a
which
lot of
we all
employees
want.
want.
Yeah.
Exactly. So let's dig into this communication. Oh, I'm giddy. So the first question I have to ask is why? Let's set the table first, Amy, before we get into the specifics of handwritten communication and its importance and its value. Why do you feel, let's baseline it, do you feel communication is so important in the workplace?
Well, I mean, it's based on my personal experience. I went on this letter writing journey that I never intended to go on. And it happened to the time period of about 2016, 17, 18. And I realized just by complete accident that we have this power for about 15 minutes of our time. And the only cost that could be involved is our time. And if you were going to mail the note, it's going to be 73 cents in the United States. And it
Mhm.
just this little thing we can put in our toolbox as anyone who's involved in the arena of human relationships. So, of course, that stretches to the workplace. We have this incredible tool in our tool belt that can have such impact professionally, personally such an act of goodwill that is off the chain that I didn't realize till I went on this journey and I wrote 600 handwritten letters and just had no idea that it was going to blow up my entire life. And really, my life pivoted on that experience.
But communication as a sort of just because I mean, we talk about managers and I talk about leaders. Managers are people that focus on resources and delivery. Leaders are about the people and the growth, to sort of clue into your story here. I find communication to be such that differential
Right.
between those two because a manager will just be about, did you get the thing done? No. How do we need to get the thing done? Meanwhile, a leader is going, what do you need? How can I communicate? Where's the transparency, the accountability, the connection? So, from a communication standpoint, how has that been something that you're like, you know what, I want to delve into that? This is because you have your story of doing 580 handwritten letters, but to translate that into the workplace and its value, I mean, this is just a smaller part of a larger conversation. I often say every job is a communication job. I don't care where you are in the organization, there's communication has something to do with the role. So, what's this love of communication that you're focusing so much of your time and effort in, of the importance of it?
Well, I mean, it absolutely makes the employee feel valued on a level that again, you can't gauge. It's next level communication. Handwritten notes, I mean, I'm talking about a sticky note, Russell. You can do it in 2 sentences, but it will have the absolute, it's next level. I spoke with somebody who I spoke with, or I guess I spoke at their event, and she said that she went around about 6 months after making a commitment to write 2 employees a week a little handwritten note. I appreciate you. I'm sorry to hear about this. You knocked it out of the park. You just simple messages. And she said she went around the area where the cubicles lived of her area. And she said just everywhere these notes were hanging up in the cubicles. It wasn't like I gave you something and you just went an email, you printed it and put it away. These people displayed it like a badge of honor. It is next level. And you can't really, vocabulary doesn't do a good job with relaying the power of this. People will save these notes. They will save your written communication, basically almost forever, where they won't do that with anything else you could do. It's almost so simple. It's so counterintuitive because it's so powerful that's wrapped up in this simplicity. Like it can't be that easy. It is absolutely that easy.
So, what do they get out of it? And I mean this from not only the person that's writing the handwritten note, but the other, because communications is two-way. It's not only what you say, but how it's received.
Right.
So, as the person writing it versus the person that's displaying it, what do you think the greater value is of writing handwritten notes for each of those audiences?
Well, I think on each side of the equation, I think both sides come out a winner. Now, I would argue, just based on my story, that the person who writes the note is going to get even more out of it. But that's not really the point of what we're talking about. Because what you're going to do, Russell, is when you write something to an employee and recognize something they've done or connect with them on a more human level and say, hey, I heard about your mom. I'm sorry. Yeah, I heard about your kid winning the whatever. Congratulations, or whatever you're going to say in the note. You're going to you expressing that gratefulness is going to put your mind, you're going to be a better leader. You're going to put yourself in the perspective of, oh my gosh, you're going to look at things and people around you differently just by recognizing people. Then you're going to see the power of good. You're going to see the off the chain power this has, and you're going to realize, oh my god, I can make a difference with these people. This is a way I can connect to them. So yeah, you're going to feel better about your job, but even at the end of the day, when we're doing all this for 9 or 10 hours a day, we're human beings.
Right.
And this sounds like I'm a unicorn prancing on your podcast with rainbows coming out my butt. But you know what? If you feel good about what you're doing as a human being, you're going to be better for everybody, including yourself. So that's one side of the equation.
Right.
You writing the letters, but the other side is you're going to make people feel valued in a way that you can't really gauge because it's one thing for you to leave me a voicemail, for you to send me an email, or you to stop me in the hall randomly because you saw me, or by the coffee maker, by the elevator, whatever, on the Zoom call. And being called out in front of everybody, that's great too. But you're going to realize when your employee or customer gets this handwritten note, there's going to be this process that happens in their head. And it's going to be click, click. Hey, my boss, the person who I really look up to or don't, but work for, whatever that relationship is. And we talk so much about that supervisor employee relationship and the importance of that one on one, that one part of the organizational chart that's so important. This is the person who takes up a lot of your headspace. This person sat down, they had to find the card, they had to get the ballpoint gel pen out, they had to take the time to write this stuff down and think it up and then sign it personally. And then they had to deliver it to me, interoffice mail. They had to mail it to me because we're working from home. They had to take it over to me. If you drop it off personally, that's even better. And they're going to realize, oh my God, that's how much what I'm doing in this organization matters to that person. And they're going to feel valued beyond most any other thing you can do. And I think it includes, I think it transcends. Now, if you're going to give them a bonus, let's throw the letters out. But I mean, put the bonus in there. But beyond other levels of appreciation, it's so personal. It's so one on one. It's so effort driven. I mean, they realize you took that effort for them and they're going to feel valued. And, you're going to uptick things like retention. It's a very silent, they talk about the silent killer. It's like the silent goodwill, this wave and this rush of goodwill that you're really not going to be able to gauge, but people are going to stick around for that kind of stuff. I guarantee you.
Do you think in the face of leadership being too busy, which I still think that's the stigma that people are too busy to be good leaders. They're too busy. So when we're talking about handwritten notes, we're literally showing a physical thing that fights against the too busy stigma to show, hey, look at what effort I put in to recognize you. Like it's almost the antithesis of the leader who's too busy versus the leader who will carve out actual valuable time to write something out, meaning it means more to the person
Oh,
because I'm like, they're so busy, they're at meetings, and yet they still took the time to write this. This means more to me now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're going to see that's part of that tick tick in the head. They're going to say this took time, this took effort, this took personal. It's a personal act, and they did that for me. And in their own handwriting, that's a big deal. And especially now, even people who haven't participated in letter writing at some point in their life. I have. I did when I was younger. But it's going to mean something because they're going to understand that's different than everything else they've received. And you're right, they're so busy, but they're not busy enough to recognize me in this way because people know if you give them a plaque. I mean, I love plaques. I got plaques up all over. I'm all about that. I'm like the kid who wanted stickers. I'm still motivated. You gave me a sticker chart, Russell. I'm all over it. I'm going to have more stickers than anyone else, any of your other guests. But the thing is, they know their assistant orders the plaques. I'm just saying it means something, but it means more when that supervisor did it themselves, that manager, that vice president, that whatever the role is, it is going to be off the charts and it's going to enhance that relationship more than we can, again, put vocabulary at.
Why does email, Slack messages, instant messenger not have that personal feel? Because I mean, sometimes it takes about the same amount of time to type out
Oh, yeah.
everything, but
Yeah.
it's not the physicality of it. But to your point, it's different and it's separate. Why do you think that is?
Well, because I think that's such a regular and ordinary and necessary part of our working universe. We don't send anyone little notes anymore. And it's very intimate. And again, this is the unicorn comes back on screen here. But for you, especially if we work remotely, if for me to hold something in my hands that someone meant just for me, that physicality has, and there's a vulnerability with handwriting. And if your handwriting's not great, that's amazing because you're sharing that and you're like, look, I'm not perfect, but I'm going to share this with you. And we don't know each other's handwriting. We do because people still do work orders or notes but this is just, it's so next level. I guarantee you will not believe the impact. And I've heard this feedback over and over again when I've spoken or been on a podcast. Real estate companies are using it to generate referrals. It can be used laterally in an organization, upwards, downwards. It can be basically used anywhere where there's a relationship. If you look at how this works, from a business standpoint, people are hiring, they're buying software and hardware that will do this like robotically, like AI, like they will. And that's the other thing we're fighting against is this AI can generate the best email appreciating someone, chat GPT can, but if you do it in your own words, it's like unfiltering pictures, how refreshing that is in your own words. And your words don't have to be perfect because that's better than chat GPT, especially if you've handwritten it, because they know if you get something in the mail and it looks handwritten, you're like, this isn't handwritten. You don't believe that. You're not buying into it. Your employees feel the same way. We're all living in the same world, Russell.
And the world's changing so much. To your point earlier, you're talking about remote work. Have you seen the need for this grow as we seem to be geographically further and further away from each other?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Because and it's a way to reach people because they're isolated at home. I mean, no, it's a great for people who can pull it off. It's a great advantage, but to have something delivered to your door from your boss telling you did a good job or telling you, again, something more personal, a recognition or a condolence or a congratulations, it will not, they'll be like, this person cares about me on a level that makes me want to work harder, to do more, to be a part of this. I want to be a part of this.
And I feel as we get more and more separate from wanting phone calls, like that's becoming more and more thing. Like, just text me, just email me. I don't want you to call me. I don't want to hear a human being's voice because I'm busy. Or there's a lot of people with social anxiety that do not want to just even engage. But a handwritten note kind of gets around that. It's such a personal approach, while still like a phone call used to be, but it
Right.
seems to be that more acceptable way of communicating.
Well, it's totally non-intrusive. That's the other element. Is completely, it doesn't require a reply. It's not an awkward moment. What do I say now? And some of those manager employee relationships can be, I mean, I've been in awkward relationships like that. What do I say next? And there's weird pauses, none of that. And then they can physically hold on to it for the rest of their lives too. I mean, you're giving them a gift, really.
Is every occasion worthy of a handwritten note? Or there's some things you're like, you know what, you probably shouldn't do that in a handwritten note.
Well, I think you know that if you're a manager, I think that's why brevity is probably a good thing.
Mhm.
Just stick to that because I keep a list on my desk of who I'm going to write a note to. And some of them are professional and those are brief. Thank you for having me on your show. Like it was a great experience and thank you for letting me share my story and talk about note writing. But I go much more personal than that. That's one, it's not necessary. And two, is it appropriate? Probably not, unless we have an outside connection. But I think we know that you would just keep it brief and say what it is you have to say. Obvious things.
You talk about having a list yourself of who you want to send it to. What goes into the effort of writing handwritten notes to make it a part of your practice? Because to your point, this probably shouldn't be a one-off. This shouldn't be a, hey, remember when Russell sent that handwritten note 5 years ago? That was
Right.
a good day.
Right.
It's like it should be part of the DNA of the organization or how you engage. So how do you start this process and make it part of how you lead?
Well, I think that when I've seen this, I think the best practice is it's really got to fit you, your personality as a leader. So is it two times a week, every Wednesday, thankful Thursday? I don't know. You pick one day or 2 days or 3 days or whatever your tolerance level is. Because it is work and it is putting yourself out there. And I still, after all these notes, Russell, after all these letters, I still sit down. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to write another letter. And I don't, I mean, it's a natural human response not to want to do things even when you know they make a difference. But I think you make it a part of the fabric of your workday. And if it's going to be every morning you sit down, every other morning, 2 days a week, one day a week, it will have this. You just have to have a tolerance level that works for you. Every Friday, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start my week this way. When you pick a time and you're going to commit 15 minutes or 10 minutes, that's all it's going to take you. It's not going to be hard and it's not going to be long. And you have to get past the fact that you just have to let yourself see how it works. Do the first five and see what happens because it will have an incredible. It's like I said, it's just something in your tool belt, one thing that will just make a really big difference with a small investment.
The thing is, though, is a lot of managers are in leadership positions and they're horrible communicators,
Right.
or they feel awkward, or they feel inauthentic going down this path. What would you say to them?
You got to fight that because I felt all those things. You have got to fight that and realize that it is never, there is never something wrong about one human reaching out to another human and saying something positive. That is never misplayed, especially when it's done briefly and sincerely. And I think we think that we live in this world where we feel like we need specific training to do things. That's
Mhm.
not the case for this. And I think one of the drawbacks of my story is that I am a writer. It has nothing to do with me being a writer. It has with my story has everything to do with me being a human being relating to other human beings. And I think you absolutely have to shut that down and just try it. And that's hard to do. Like I said, I still struggle with that. And I'm the biggest advocate of letter writing that I know, or note writing.
Well, I want to go back to the sort of comment I sort of slipped in earlier, the whole I'm too busy thing. I'm just going to drop this on my admin staff, Amy. Just get them to write it and I'll sign it. Like it's just that the machine of work and people being resistant to doing something like this, how do you carve out time? How do you prioritize this?
Right. I think it's something you're going to have to carve out 10 or 15 minutes for, almost thinking this is counterintuitive. I'm going to do it just because I want to have these benefits. And then I think that once you have the momentum of look at how this works, because this is my experience in talking to
Mhm.
leaders, that they were like, I'm so glad I did it because I didn't realize the benefits. And they basically just made themselves do it at the beginning, thinking this is dumb, this isn't going to work. And then they were like, oh my gosh, this is off the freaking chains. But I think you're just going to, it's one of those things you're going to have to do. I don't know. I don't know if you compare it to exercise or self education or some of those things we do. We're like, okay, why am I doing this? Because I don't have time for it. I do not have time to do this. This is something that you need to make time for because it works. And as a bonus, you're going to feel better about your whole entire self as a human being, as a leader by doing it. So it's like levels of benefit.
But we both know it's not just about the messenger and the message, it's about the audience. So there's a lot of diversity in organizations. There's a lot, and I mean that generationally. I don't just mean that culturally. Is it always well received? Is it like I always just a little nervous when I think of here's a strategy that works for everybody. I'm like, but does it though?
Yeah.
So in your experience, do you feel like this is something no matter where you are in the spectrum of humanity, handwritten notes have impact?
Well, I don't think there's anything we do as human beings that say we can say it's 100% foolproof, because I think
Mm,
that's people come from different places. I would say 97% of this will be well received. And I think there are people, when you do something out of nothing but goodwill, that it still won't be received as goodwill. But should that stop us from the other 97% of the impact we can have? No. And again, I think that's a unicorn approach. But what I've seen, the amount of goodness outweighs the 3% of people. And I don't think they'd be
mhm.
offended. I think it's more, it's not intrusive unless people are not going to accept it that way. Like, why would you write me a note? But I think that's so rare and in between that I think it would be something not to be concerned about. I think I'd be more concerned about getting too personal in the letters with someone who you felt like, because like you said, you got to look at people and see who they are as a manager and say and respect those boundaries, because there's some people who don't want HR with their information. Well, then you just keep that professional and say, hey, you knocked it out of the park on the blah 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 deal, or in the meeting the other day, that point you made was brilliant. Just keep it completely professional. But you also know that people are all up in their feels, who, if you wrote them a letter and say, I'm sorry your father died, that's going to mean everything to them for years. So you got to be, but that's why you're the manager. You got to look at people, or the leader, to your point. That's why you're the leader. You got to know your people.
And to, as you mentioned before, it's a physical representation of effort and care. So even if you are a person on the other end that doesn't like, oh, this is weird, maybe it might inspire conversation for them to clarify how they do like to be recognized, how they do want to be like, maybe, I mean, to your point, it could be 2 or 3%, but there still might be that people that just, you know what, I'd prefer it if you just sent me a quick note in an email or something. Great. Now I
Right.
know. I didn't know that before. But nobody, to your point, is going to take it as an immediate going, oh, well, this is horrible. They're going to see it as, oh, you care enough to spend that extra amount of time. Even though it doesn't work for me, I
Right.
still think it's a piece of your care.
Right. And I think that outweighs, but I have not talked to anyone. I've talked about this a lot. I've talked to a
Mm,
lot of people in a lot of groups. I've not had one person come to back to me and say, hey, they had that person who said that. But I'm not saying that's not out there. I'm not
right.
saying everyone's emailing me with every experience. This is not, I'm not generating a coupon that says 100%. I'm saying that act, what you just said, that act of personal care and concern, that effort that it took
Mhm.
you out of your busy day outweighs a lot of other stuff you can mess up. It really does, because that connection, that's why it overrides misspellings, it overrides a whole lot of stuff, because they will just be blown away that you took the time, especially in this frantic culture we're in.
Do you think a lot of people will get in their own way in doing this? Because I mean, I hear we're talking about people that might feel inauthentic. People might look like they're stupid because they misspell a word
Right.
or they got bad handwriting. Do you think it's people just getting in their own way of this may make me be too vulnerable, or my staff might look at me as too, I don't know, touchy feely?
I felt that way when I wrote the letters and I wrote them to friends. I felt like I don't know if I felt like I was being inauthentic. I definitely felt like I was putting myself out there. And was that even necessary? But again, all I can tell you is I'm an expert on this topic, and I say that not to blow smoke up my own butt, but I am on a whole different bunch of different levels and a bunch of different arenas. This works, and you will definitely get in your own way. I get in my own way. We're human beings. I mean, us putting ourselves out there and being vulnerable, especially in a professional situation where there's all these rules, what we can and can't do, and it's overwhelming. I don't think this is foolproof, but I do not think people can get this wrong. If you get out of your own way, it will be to your benefit and the benefit of the people who you work with. Absolutely. And in ways that you cannot understand. And you can come back to me, and I don't want to be told that I'm right. I just think this can make such a difference that there is no, if you can get out of your own way, you're going to be so glad 100% that you did. Not that it's my idea, not because I'm a great person, because it has power between humans enough so that I want to share it.
Does this scale? Because I mean, as we're talking, it sounds very much a leader sharing handwritten notes with their direct reports in an organization. But there's CEOs that have many people that report to them. Thousands could be within the organization. Is it something that they should be looking to do handwritten notes across the organization? Is it just look within your layer? How do you scale this, or should you?
I think it just you let it take a course of its own. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people who've told me, "Oh yeah, no." I'll be talking to them about this entire concept. They'll be, "I got a note one time from the vice president of my company, and I still have it in the drawer right behind me." I think it's again, it's got to fit you as a leader personally. One note a week, 5 notes a year. To your point, don't just do one and then done. But I think absolutely CEOs could use it sparingly. I mean, it's got to be used in the context of some people have thousands of people working for them. Well, that's not doable. But maybe your direct reports is the scale. Maybe I mean, that's the thing. I mean, with customers, I mean, if you've got millions of customers, no, that doesn't work. But if you're a small startup, yes, it works. So there's the scalings based on the situation you're in, but it basically would fit anywhere where you wanted to express something, a congratulations or a well done or a you knocked it out of the park kind of thing.
Are there some preferred practices you would recommend to somebody that's going down this path for the first time, going, oh, okay, I should have a list of people that I need to write handwritten notes, or I need to have a template of types of messages that I should have? What would you recommend to somebody where this doesn't come naturally to them
Right. I would,
and but they really want to?
right. And I would, I mean, and I talked about chat GBT earlier.
Mhm.
You can use that. And it's not inauthentic if you don't feel comfortable. So for the first couple notes, you put in appreciate an employee for this and see what comes out. Paraphrase that or use it directly. But when you sign your name and you put their name on it, and I guarantee you, so let's say you use that at the beginning to get you going. Oh my gosh, you're going to know what to say by letter five. You are because you're going to use a variation of that you feel is in your own voice. And like all people who write and communicate, you're going to look back and say, oh my gosh, I'm so much better at this than I was at the beginning because that's the way we work as creative human beings. We get better, but and it's not even a crutch, use a tool that you're comfortable with. Google employee appreciation note, get examples and use that because it's not inauthentic because you're still, the act of doing it is the important thing. The message is important. And if you're a professional person, yes, you want to spell everything right. Yes, you want it to make it look like professional because you're the manager, but you can do that. So use good handwriting or as the best you can. I'm just saying the handwriting's a powerful thing because they know it's personal. They know that it means more than the email because it took more time. But use those tools we have as people in this century to get the campaign kicked off. And that's going to make you feel more comfortable because you're going to know it's words that somebody else used before. Now, if you're a communicator, in writing, if that's one of your gifts or tools, then this will be easy for you. But if not, lean on what you have. Even have someone help you, have your spouse help you, have a coworker help you to develop this. And then it's not inauthentic because you're still, the reason you're doing it is still the same. You're just using tools to get there.
What would be your top five? I want to go to the people that are like, I don't even know where to start. Like, I don't even know what note to even write about. What would be your top five occasions to write a handwritten note for?
Well, I think the top is like recognizing for something that somebody did, even if it's small, because we all work and feel like no one notices what we're doing. So it could be like you were great on a Zoom meeting. We were in that meeting. We were with this customer. Something you noticed, and you just jot it down in your meeting notes and circle it and put a star next to it. Or you see a written piece of communication from that person. So the first is good job. And I think we as managers, we recognize those things every day, whether we follow through, and they can be small things. It doesn't have to be you won, the Pulitzer Prize. Congratulations. Good job on your Oscar. It doesn't have to be employee of the year type situations, because I think the small stuff has an even bigger impact, really. But those things, and then a major life event, and again, you have to be, whether you want to feel or not, but I've talked to so many people, and these are business podcasts that I talk to, and they talk about someone sending them a note when a parent died, and they get emotional about a supervisor or a coworker or somebody they Zoom with from New Jersey once a week. They talk about with such great emotion that they were recognized. And a really short note, it does not have to get personal. I am sorry that your mother died. Russell.
Yeah.
And they will talk about that. And I bet that's happened to me 25 times where people have brought that up. It is so huge. So that a big life event like that, or I don't know, you have to be careful. Like congratulations, keeping that kind of in the professional thing. But things that are exceptions, you had a baby, sending someone a card, a new mom card to the house, and it does not have to be personal. But you saw that person be pregnant the whole time, so it's not like a surprise to anyone. Congratulations on your new baby girl. Looking forward to having you back at work. You know, Russell. It's huge.
I think it's that balance we've talked about on the show before about how professionalism. I hate professionalism because I think it's more of a barrier
Hmm.
to diversity and all these things because it stops you from being more human.
Right,
However, to your point, you could be too human. You can get
right,
way too personal and go down that. So there's almost this balance where you need to be respectful
right.
in the sort of in the middle of it.
Right. And I think you keep non-intrusive as the word in your head. I want to say these things, but I don't want to get all up in your business. I just want you to know that I see you and I appreciate you and I value you enough to do this. And what happens to you matters to me, because that's really what people want to know. I mean, that's what I want to know. That makes me feel good. And then by again, the bonus in this whole transaction is you're going to look at employees differently. You're going to see things differently. And this is a messed up world we live in. And it gives you a chance every day or every other day or every Monday or whatever your scale, whatever your plan is, to realize you can do something good for another person in a day. And again, unicorns prancing all over the screen. It is a difference maker. You will be a better leader for doing this. And this is a guarantee, because you can't, on the other side of the transaction, you have no control over what happens. But I think that's 97%, pretty much for sure, a lock. But you can control, how it makes you feel. That's a guarantee. You will feel good. And do it in a way that fits you. And that's the other thing. We're all so different. This has to fit your personality, your level of how much you feel like you can put out there. But I think in my experience, once you start doing it, you're going to build momentum that you didn't. I've heard this from a lot of people. Oh my gosh, now it just feels like a regular part of who I am as a leader.
I can't think of a better way to wrap up the conversation, Amy. Thank you so much for that. This flew by. I have one more question to ask you before we get on our merry way. Amy, what's one simple action people can do right now to improve their relationships at work?
Well, you know what I'm going to say, because why wouldn't I say it? We just talked about it for 40 minutes. I would say whether it's a sticky note that you stick on somebody's monitor or just a little note, just do one and see what happens. And I think the thing is, you talked a lot about getting in your own way, and that's such a part of my personal experience. But there are those moments in life where we do something that we feel like is crazy or a little bit nutso or a little bit out there, and those a lot of times those are the moments where our life pivots professionally, personally. So maybe your inner voice is not talking about letter writing, because when you're listening to us right now, maybe it's saying something else. So maybe the takeaway is, let's all go do that one thing that we feel like a little nuts, a little crazy, and let's believe ourselves, believe our own BS just enough to do something great.
That is Amy Weinland Daughters. She's an author, keynote speaker, and humorist. You should definitely check out her inspiring book, her award winning book, Dear Dana, That Time I Went Crazy and Wrote All 580 of My Facebook Friends a Handwritten Letter. Thank you so much for being here, Amy.
Thank you so much, Russell. I enjoyed being on.